I am Gary Usher, live from Los Angeles, and I've got a panel of heavyweights today. This is number 3 in our home theater series. Wow, I can't believe we've arrived at this already, David. It's been a long time planning, but certainly the most successful concept that we've pulled off on our weekly webinar series so far. I'm really proud to be part of it. It's all about home theater. We've assembled a panel that we thought would really make sense and take you through a little journey in the here and the now on the product. You're going to hear a lot about different product today. Primarily, I'll let David kind of preface what we want to cover. But like I said, it's the last in the series. Can you walk away with a full home theater concept? Absolutely. Recording this right now, we're going to be able to kind of push all these together if you need to over the next few weeks over the holiday seasons. We've got product coming in the barn. So we're super excited about not only this topic, because this topic really drives a lot of the ingenuity and our creativity. The home theater scenario is just a lot of fun. So we've assembled a panel that we feel is fantastic. We feel really good of our placement in terms of helping you, like Jeff was just saying. Every day, guys are coming to the counter at Snap One Local and throwing their concepts out, and my team continues to help refine what those concepts are. And through a vehicle like this, we can kind of do this live and talk about it in a real sense. So that's my spiel. Thank you guys so much for making 2021's weekly webinar series so successful, keeping my gig, right? We've got a lot of plans coming into 2022 for the weekly webinar series to continue. We've got a new time that we're introducing. That's 6 a.m. on the West Coast. That's 9 a.m. on the East Coast. So a little bit earlier for you guys since we've seen such a success in our morning sessions. But we're starting out the year with AV Pros, and I've got Lutron coming up. I've got Claire. I've got all of the products that you're seeing on the shelves, obviously at Snap One Local. But some of the things that you don't know, and that's why we bring these sessions together. A lot of these guys are my friends, my comrades, and I can't thank you guys enough for helping me continue to push conversation that makes sense each and every week and makes this hour make sense. So in that sense, I want to get to work, and I want you guys to have a serious takeaway on this. Guys, I'm going to introduce my good friend, David Phillips. David Phillips, you were insurmountable in kind of getting this concept together, and we're going to work a lot together in 2022 and continuing to do just that. Guys, thank you so much. We'll get you on the very tail end of this. Let's get to work. David Phillips, take it away, buddy.
Thanks, Gary. I appreciate the intro. You are such an amazing host, by the way. I love these intros. I get to sit and listen to you all day, actually.
Great gig. I want to keep it. So let's continue.
Yeah, you need to do a webinar on webinars one of these days.
Right.
How to do a webinar, because that would be awesome. I would dial in. So yeah, welcome everyone. We're here today to wrap up the third in our 3-part series of home theater. So this one we've called Installing It Right. So we're going to be bringing up a few topics to figure out, what we wish we'd known back in the day when we were picking up tools and installing home theaters. We want to talk about how to overcome obstacles. We want to talk about the importance of why you need to calibrate the tools you need to do stuff. So hopefully we can have a lot of fun. So let's do a quick round of introductions. My name's Dave Phillips. I work here at Snap One. Been with the company before Snap One Control 4 for about 11 years, and prior to that had all manner of jobs in the industry, from installing to programming to selling and calibrating, all types of stuff. So that's my background. Jeff, you're in the top corner. You want to introduce yourself quick? Oh, you're muted.
Jeff, you're muted.
Hey, Jeff Marks from JVC, handle the Snap local account volume tone as well as Custom Plus. And thanks for having me on today.
Lovely, brilliant. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for joining us. Pat.
I'm also with JVC, and I take care of AllNet and MRI.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris Deutsch, and I handle Snap e-commerce, and I'm very happy to be here.
Brilliant. Thanks to all of you guys, by the way. JVC, 3 of you guys coming online to help us out. Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate that. Seth.
Hi, I'm Seth Snyder. I am the brand activator for Sound United. So Denon, Marantz, Polk, and Definitive at Snap. Brand activator is Southern California title speak for I'm your technical trainer guy. So if you have any questions, I'm here to activate your brands, baby. So you let me know what technical questions you have out there in the field, and I'm happy to work with you. I'm based in the Northeast, so the MRI guys, I'm your point of contact. And there's a whole team of guys who are just like me, better looking than me, that can help you out with the rest of the country as well. So reach out to your brand activators for any Sound United questions.
Love having you on. Thanks, Seth. Appreciate your experience and knowledge on the call today. So JD, oh, you're muted too.
I was saying I was looking for my mute button. So JD, folks, I'm on the product marketing team at Snap. I've been here for a couple of years. I've been in the industry probably almost 15 years in one way or another. So happy to be here and share what little bit of knowledge I might have that hopefully helps someone out. And but as much as anything, I like learning from the other guys on this call. There's always come away with something.
Superstar. Thanks, JD. Yeah, your experience with the kind of the display heavy hitters is critical and much valued. So thanks for joining us. And then we got Adam, who is on the phone on the road, also on mute in advance, who hopefully can do a quick introduction. Or we can just move on. All right, well, let's just jump into some of the topics then. So the first thing I'm going to talk about today was kind of planning for these home theaters, right? So we covered the kind of the audio product side of things last week. We covered the audio product side of things last week, but what I wanted to talk about is the wiring and preparing for an install like this. And by the way, as we talk through this, if you guys have got any questions at all, please put them in the chat and we'll make a point of answering them right there and then as they come through at the next available opportunity. So I remember many years ago, someone said something to me that's that I will never forget. And that is, the most expensive cable is the one you didn't run. That has stuck with me for years. And so look, cable's pretty affordable. Cable's kind of cheap. And if you have the opportunity, if it's a new construction or a fairly serious renovation, you just got to run as many cables as you can physically fit in the walls until there's more cables than wall. It's so important, especially, that first session we had, we spoke about subwoofers, right? One subwoofer is going to do a great job, but you know what's going to do a much better job is 2 subwoofers, and what's going to do an even better job than that is 4 subwoofers. And so you might not have the opportunity to sell the client up front on 4 subwoofers, but it is really reasonably priced to run the cabling for 4 additional subwoofers. Now, one of the JVC guys, can you give us a bit of insight into some of the cables you would suggest running to a projector location?
Jeff, you're muted. Jeff is muted, so I'll go and I'll take it. I think there's 2, possibly 3 cables that are going to come into play. Actually, I'm gonna add a 4th, depending on how the projector's installed. So obviously HDMI cables are a key thing, and on all of our new projectors, we're HDMI 2.1. That means we're the full 48 gigabit per second capability, and the purpose of that is for people that have either a 4K 120 frame signal, such as from a video game console, or looking toward the future, an 8K 60 signal. Those don't really exist yet, but in both cases, if you want to be able to take advantage of that functionality, you need to run an HDMI cable that can support that. Typically projectors use longer cables, and so those cables they exist. Snap has them, but they are rare. So that's number one. Number 2 is to run some kind of a IP cable, RJ45 type cable for network control. And interestingly, that's also used in our optional calibration function. So to have that Ethernet connection, hardwired connection to the projector is useful, both for control and for calibration. A little thing that I do that some people may not think about. So my projector is mounted in such a way that it's hard to access the back. There's very good airflow, but it's still tough for me to reach the back of the projector. And so I have a little USB extension cable running from the back of the projector to where I can access it for firmware updates. And so I would say that that would be the fourth possible cable you might want to run. Jeff or Patrick, you want to add to that?
The only thing you might want to add to that is if they plan on doing a remote trigger for a screen or something like that, they're going to have
Good
to
call.
run. They're going to have to run something from that. But other than that, you nailed it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have never heard of adding that USB extension to the back of the projector. That is an absolutely brilliant idea.
He's a smart guy.
Yeah.
Well, some people in many installations you don't need it, but in my particular installation, it makes my life a lot easier.
No, I love it. Right, and you would just run a cat cable of some sorts for the 12-volt trigger cable from the projector to the screen or back to a rack and then out to the projector, right? Sorry, the screen.
Well, there's two different things there. The 12-volt trigger can literally be almost anything. Some people use cat wiring and they terminate it with the mono mini plug. Some people use just, I mean, literally it can be almost any kind of wiring. Obviously, the network cable is just very specific for an RJ45 connection.
Yeah, I generally run just a bunch of extra cat cables to projectors just because they're kind of versatile. You know, in a push, you can throw video over them. You can use them for infrared if you get really stuck, obviously IP control, screen triggers, so on and so forth. So yeah,
even some extras, just as far as, you know, as technology changes over the years. If you throw in a cheap RJ45 cable, you've got a pull cable if you need to pull a whole new set down the road. So definitely, yeah, load up on those.
Very true. The best way to replace an old HDMI is to use it to pull the new HDMI. I found that a couple times.
Very true. Love it. So Seth, tell us about Atmos. You know, if you come across scenarios where somebody's just perhaps installed 5 or 7 ear level speakers, but then pre-wired for height channels, or those extra subs we spoke about.
Yeah, it's one of the things you touched on earlier. Is cabling's not expensive. Even the really good cabling that you guys carry at Snap One, it doesn't cost a whole lot for a big spool. Customer buys that big spool once, and then you're done. So wire up for, you know, those height channels for the customer that either can't do it, doesn't want to do it, isn't ready to do it, so that when it comes time to add those Atmos channels in the future, the cable is just waiting there. All you have to do is cut that hole, pop the new Atmos channel in, and you're done. Try to use a thicker gauge wire, or what I like to do, I use four conductor wire. That way, you know, when it get to the actual end of the speaker, I can twist those ends together and get a bigger, higher gauge, or, you know, run, you know, 2 channels off of those 4 speakers, and do the same thing for the rest of the house as well. I mean, this is a home theater specific webinar. But if they want music on all the other places in the house, I mean, the house is, if you're walking into a job site and it's just the sticks, I mean, run into the bathroom, run to the kitchen, run into the damn closet, put them everywhere you can. That way, there's no excuse. I want music here, but I can't get it there. Yeah, you can. The wire's already there. Cut it open. You're good to go. So run those wires as many as you can. And you hit it earlier, David. Thank you. Subs. You stopped at 4 though. Keep going. 6, 12. You know, let's get into that world. Always have more subs. Subwoofers are that thing. Like, everyone's used to 5.1, 7.1, 7.1.2. They're used to just the one LFE channel. If you want to balance that room, like we talked about in a previous webinar, the ability to add subs in the future will help the customer build the system over time. And it's nice when those LFE wires are just ready to go. Just, you know, again, cut a hole in the wall. It's buried in there in between the stud bay. Pull it out, and you're slap a finishing plate on there, and you're done. So wire up those rooms that are for 1 sub with, you know, 4. Get them in each corner, or, you know, in the fronts, in between the left and right speakers where they're going to go. Customer won't know they're there, but you'll look like a rock star when you come in and retrofit a sub in, or, you know, add a separate box. So always have enough for that.
Yeah, that's a really good upsell opportunity as well, isn't it? You know, it's another reason to go back at a later date to improve a system, because, like, I mean, we spoke about this a couple of weeks back, right, where where this is I think, was it you, Seth, that called us kind of legal drug dealers, where we're selling,
Yeah, that
we're
was me.
selling. That was you. I thought it was you. We're selling something that this is an addictive room to be in. You know, a high quality home theater room is addictive. You want to make it better. You want to upgrade it, and you're doing your customers a favor by running these extra cables to add height channels, to add more surround speakers, to add more subwoofers to the room. So
yeah, particularly with the subs. I mean, subs are that's the emotion, whatever it is that you're watching. That's the thing that makes it a real theater. Besides, obviously, a big badass JVC projector and a huge screen. You know, the size of the screen is that's half of that equation. The other half is making it feel like a movie theater, is just getting those sound pressure levels to where they need to be, which is on the low frequency, friggin' loud. Like get it cranked up, have some fun, so that you can maintain control of the space. Not so you can just blow the windows out, but so that you can maintain control of the space. So if a customer wants a little bit more or wants to expand their seating, you know, they'll have the ability to add more subs to eliminate those nulls that you get whenever you don't have enough subs in a room.
Yeah, or in the right places for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, Chris, you mentioned games consoles, and I wanted to touch on this because this is one of the things I've actually seen forgotten a couple of times in home theaters, where you have a rack. You know, a rack is 4 rooms away or in the basement or something. You've got a home theater room. You've got all the right cables going to the projector for video. You've got a beautiful surround sound system, and then someone says, "Hey, can I plug my Xbox or PlayStation into the projector?" Because a lot of them have wireless controllers, so you need relative close proximity between controller and console. So that really means the console's probably got to go in the room somewhere. What kind of cables would we be running from that console location to enable a customer to use a games console in a dedicated room where the rack is somewhere else?
I'll tell you how I do it, because I have a similar thing. Now, this dates back a couple of years before, you know, streaming was all consolidated on one thing. Often my son would want to plug in his laptop. And so we just, you know, early on, we took an extra HDMI cable. Now, this is not going to the projector, but just literally one spare HDMI cable from the AV receiver, and placed it in a convenient location where he could plug in, you know, his laptop. And just thinking out loud to answer your question, I think that's probably how I would do it. I would have a convenient location, a local location in the theater, because you're right, the controllers are wireless, but they're not. You know, and I don't know the exact range, but I'm sure there's a limit on the range. And so have that local cable. Now, of course, that means your AVR, and I'm sure Seth can add on to what I'm going to say here. So your projector supports HDMI 2.1. You're going to have the right cable to support HDMI 2.1. And obviously you need an AVR that's going to allow you to switch HDMI 2.1. And lastly, this also speaks to the need to just have a second HDMI cable. We allow you to set up the EDID independently for each input. And, you know, I mean, this is quite the mix of gear, and you may very well find that you want to have 2 HDMIs available at the projector, just like you want 4 subwoofer locations in the room. You may not think you need that second one right now, but go ahead and run it just as a backup, just as an in case you got to wire something a little different.
Yeah, the 2.1 standard is both exciting, and it can be a bit of a pain because you're only going to have a couple of them available on the back of that receiver. So if I can plug a product that's brand new for us real quick, one of the things that you might want to keep like on your truck is as a couple, because they're relatively inexpensive, like $180, is the new VS 3003 from Marantz. It's a 3-way HDMI 2.1 switch. So you turn one HDMI 2.1 input on that receiver into 3, and it has CEC controls. So it'll adjust. So when you switch inputs on the receiver, it'll toggle through the actual inputs on the actual device. So it's super slick. And when you run these situations where you get to an install and it's like, oh, by the way, we we're a Magic family and we're able to pick up one of these mysterious PS5s that apparently exist somewhere. I need you to add that into the system last minute. You're not sitting there trying to explain to them why that's not possible because there aren't enough. You got that little switcher and you're good to go. That'll help solve those issues in those rooms with some of those longer cable runs as well. So keep that in mind. Little switcher, $180.
I love it. So everyone should be keeping one of those on their truck at all times.
Sure, yeah.
That should be part of the stock. We've got
If you get one of those, if you get one of those customers who's like really into, they tech and want to make sure they have all HDMI 2.1 inputs on the back of their receiver, just daisy chain them, and you can eventually get into like 8 individual inputs for these things, and you're ready to rock and roll.
Cool. Love it. So yeah, we're talking. So if you want a games console in the room, you want the video and audio signal to go from the games console back to the AV receiver. However, the best way of doing that is up to you guys. We want to make sure that there's network there, of course, because a lot of the games consoles or laptops, in fact, will take advantage of the internet. And then the other thing I just wanted to touch on was LED lighting. This is something that we don't necessarily, it's not the first thing we think about when we think about a home theater room, but just think about kind of accent lighting in the room, indirect lighting, maybe it's behind or under the seating. I've even seen some quite nice effects where people wrap it around the screen. You'd obviously want to turn that off for high quality viewing, but maybe at a sports event, it might kind of add a little bit of ambient light to the room so people can see what they're doing. But yeah, I think LED lighting has definitely got a place in the home theater of today. So, Seth, you touched on this a second ago, what to keep in your truck. I wanted to ask you guys that, if you're out on the road, you're doing some installs, what's the checklist? What's the list of essentials that you would always have with you?
Well, from the JVC standpoint, I'm sorry, Seth.
No, go ahead.
One of the critical things that we run up against when we're troubleshooting, and troubleshooting always, if it's a video problem, it's always the projector's fault, as we all know. But the reality is, as we get into higher bandwidth, higher frame rate, higher resolutions, there's a lot of legacy installs out there that you're going to run up against, and they may not have the proper cables. And one of the quickest ways to ensure that it's not the projector or where the problem really lies is actually having a high quality 2-meter cable and a portable source, whether it's Roku, whether it's Apple TV, something you can actually take a 2-meter high quality 48 gigabit per second, 18 gigabit per second cable, depending upon the installation, and plug it into a portable source right at the projector to troubleshoot that immediately. If it works, it's not the projector, so it's any number of cables that could be in between. But that's one of the things that you really got to have. And a lot of installers, for some reason or other, just don't carry short, high quality cables with them, and that's a big issue.
One of these things right here is great. It looks like a pepper grinder, but this is a little NVIDIA Shield. This thing is like $200. You can pick it up at on Amazon, or I think Snap. Do you guys carry NVIDIA Shields? Right. Super slick. You can upload high quality video content. So you can upload 4K content onto a little flash drive. Pop that in, and you will always have that with you. It's an HDMI cable on one, power cable on the other, and you just plug it into whatever you need to. And this thing goes everywhere with me. And to your point, also a nice, a little small portable screen plug in so you can test that. I'm just happy that someone's blaming the projectors and not the receivers, because I always thought it was always me. Because it's usually the big expensive black box that goes in the rack that gets the blame in my world. I guess we're seeing two different blame games, but nobody ever wants to blame. Nobody ever wants to blame the cable that the cable guy gave them 12 years ago. They never want to blame that one.
Hey Seth, try being the control system.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So but one of the other things you always want to keep from an audio perspective, make sure you got your tape measure. Get one of those laser tape measures. They're like $30 at Home Depot. Those just make everything, not only do they work fantastic, but you don't have to actually run tape across the room, and you look super cool doing it. I keep a little mini tripod so that I can go and get exact measurements to each speaker from the seating location. That's another good one to have. And an SPL meter. You can just download one onto your phone. You don't even have to. They've gotten pretty precise over the years, because any of the lack of precision that your phone microphone is going to have now, you're going to be able to fix with room correction software on the back end of the install whenever you're fine tuning everything. But those are the big ones: SPL meters, tape measure, the laser tape measure. Of course, like a multitude of cables. You should look like Batman rolling in there with a utility belt full of different cables that you might need. And then like I said, one of these little NVIDIA shields. I'm not sure how you need to be able to connect to networks, and if the network's not up for those, for like a Roku or an Apple TV, that if the network is up, you're golden. Those work really well. But this one you don't need a network for. You just plug it in, you're good to go. And one of the other what was I going to talk about? There was something else that you guys just reminded me of with that SPL meter and the and your phone. Oh, to send signals through your phone, you just need like a Spotify or a Tidal or an Apple Music subscription. You can literally type in 500 hertz test tone, and there will be an album somewhere listed with all those different things. So you just plug your phone into the receiver to send those test tones to all those speakers to get those SPL meters right where they need to be. So there's all kinds of options out there. Pink noise, white noise, the whole deal. So type it in, you're good to go.
That's what
I'd also like to amplify one thing Jeff Marks just said. If you noticed, Jeff specifically mentioned a 2-meter cable. So always have a known good 2-meter cable. Either flavor, either the 18 gigabits flavor for HDMI 2.0 and below, or the 48 gigabits per second if you're troubleshooting, HDMI 2.1. And the point to make is that shorter cables, 1 meter, I think I've even seen half meter, and of course not binary brand, but other brands, particularly older legacy cables that are shorter, can be as problematic as the really long lengths. It has to do with the impedance of the cable. And what we've found, and I'm sure not only Jeff, but Patrick would agree, that 2-meter is that's the length that's most likely to be flawless for troubleshooting purposes.
I'll brand pitch one more thing in here. One of the features, now be careful with this particular feature because this is not customer facing. This is for all of you guys who are out in the field. One of the problems that you can run into, and the reason you carry around a 2-meter cable, is so that, when you run into the blame game, you have something that is known to work. There is the situation where customers, they just don't want to spend any extra money on cables. They think they have exactly what they need. And one of the features we built in these receivers from Denon and Marantz in the current lineup is the ability to test the certification of the cables. Again, this is not a customer. It's not going to find this in the manual. If you need it, reach out to us and we'll send you the button combinations, the front panel button combinations to get into this. But essentially what you do is you take the one end of the cable, as long as it's not already run, you take one end of the cable, you plug it into the HDMI 2.1 input and the other cable into the monitor out input, and it will send a signal through that cable and then get a readout on the back end and tell you whether or not that cable is 2.1 certified, how many gigs a second it's gonna send per second, whether or not it's capable of. So you're gonna have the ability to test that precious cable that the customer insists on using in the customer's home and be able to tell whether or not it's up to snuff. Again, it's not customer facing. You got to follow the instructions. You go brick the thing. But at the end of the day, it's a great way to test whether or not the cable is the culprit in the situation. So along with that 2-meter cable, that's a great feature to know that's available to you. And that's available in all the Denon and Marantz receivers this calendar year.
Hey, Seth, question on that. Is that a relatively quick process, or is it more arcane like the Apple way where it takes about 10 minutes for it to actually check the continuity of the cable? Is it relatively quick on the Marantz and Denon product?
It's pretty quick. The amount of times that I've done it, it's under 45 seconds. So
Wonderful. That's
the
a phenomenal feature.
the difficult part is getting into the menu because we wanted to essentially hide it from people so that they couldn't actually get in there and do it. But you guys on the webinar, you're all pros. You know how to do this. So it allows you to test that.
That's a great feature.
That is an incredible feature. I had absolutely no idea, but we're getting a few questions in the chat here. So one comment here is, what was the way to test the cable? I missed the start of that comment. So to summarize, you're saying that you can plug, to test an HDMI cable, you can plug it in to 2 different ports on either a Denon or Marantz receiver, press a button combination, and in about a minute, the front display will tell you whether or not the cable is capable of whatever it's capable of.
Yeah, it'll tell you whether it's certified for HDMI 2.1 or whether it's it just fails. That one stings a little. That readout, it's one of those like, oh, it's a dud, you know. But it's you just plug the cable into, I believe it's HDMI 7. It's the 8K input, and then you plug the other end into monitor out, and it sends a signal through it. Justin, it's an updated process for HDMI 2.1 spec. So it's the same type of approach, but it's just an updated for the new HDMI certifications. So same thing.
Brilliant. Thanks, Seth. I think that covered that one really well. And then Omar's asking, what type of laser tape measure do you recommend?
The $30 one at Home Depot. I think Bosch makes it. I mean, there's a bunch of them. You can get them down to like a 32nd of an inch. I mean, I think you're good at like 60th of an inch. I use them for all types. I use them for a variety of different things, not only to measure the distance from the listening position, but to really dial in a good stereo by getting those speakers the perfect distance off the wall, the perfect distance across from each other. Spin your propeller hat, and have some fun with those things. It really helps you really dial in and get exactly where you need to go. So it's just one of those things that if something doesn't sound right, if it's just pulling one side to the other, trust your ears and then double check what your measurements, and you'll find that it's usually just like a couple, like an inch here, an inch there, and that laser tape measure makes it nice and quick and easy.
So talking about the kind of speaker measurement, you mentioned SPL meters, you mentioned tape measures or laser measures. Tell us how important it is to go through that process in the AVR when you're setting up a system. How important is it to be setting those distances and setting the levels?
Well, whenever you play a movie, let's say you're a purist, you buy the Blu-ray disc, you put it into your Blu-ray player, and you play it through your surround. Like, you're getting all that content is perfect. At that point, everything that's on that disc is exactly the way everything should sound. And then your room comes into the equation and screws everything up. And you really have to figure out those distances between those speakers. What you're trying to achieve is time alignment. You're trying to get all the sound from all the speakers to reach you at the exact same moment. And when you get into a properly tuned system that achieves that, things move throughout the space and you get an immersive experience you can't replicate. It's the best. It's my favorite way to watch a movie, is when everything is dialed in perfectly. But you can only achieve that if you give the receiver the information that it needs. If your speaker is 1 or 2 inches farther back than the other, and you have them in as the same distance apart, the receiver thinks that they literally are the same distance apart, and it doesn't compensate for any of those time delays between those speakers. So you got to give the receiver the information that it needs. Get close. You're going to be measuring things in tenths of a foot rather than inches. So it's like you just got to get kind of close. But it's the trick to getting them leveled is 2 parts. Number 1, measure them, get that inputted into the AVR, and then be critical and sit and listen to what you changed. As you change things, listen to music while you do it. Listen, really, and use music because it's a little bit easier to understand. Run things in all channel stereo and figure out just exactly where things need to go to really dial it in. Once you do that, once you get those measurements dialed in, it's a lot easier for the room correction software to do its job of adjusting those curves and fixing those peaks and valleys. And it helps them. It helps that you have all the information. It has all the information it needs to do its job properly, essentially. So make sure you measure. It's one of the most important things that a lot of guys skip. If you don't measure your speakers, you're never going to get that system dialed in perfectly. And it doesn't take a long time. You just laser, input the measurements, and you're done.
Yeah, and you do that from the main seating position, right? The main listening position.
Yes, always the main listening position. All their, because that, and for the simple fact that the main listening position is for the guy or gal who's buying the system. So make sure they get their money's worth, baby. Just get
That's
that
right.
get them dialed in.
You mentioned these the auto EQ systems that are built into modern day AVRs, and that reminded me of a cable that we spoke about on a previous webinar, and that's a very long 3.5 millimeter headphone jack extension cable to place the microphone in that kind of core listening position if by chance the AVR is in a rack 3 rooms down.
Yes. If you run into a situation where the Odyssey microphone that comes with Denon and Marantz receivers, if that microphone can, and it's pretty long, it's like 20 feet. But if you can't get it to the main listening position because the rack's on a different floor or whatever, you just run that extension cable up to where it needs to go. So if your customer's burying that rack down in the basement, 2 floors down, get a big long extension. You can find them; they're relatively cheap, and then run that up through the walls to wherever you're going to be. Pull it out with where one of the speaker cables come out. Just pull it with one of the cables is going to run to like ideally the center or left channel, just because that's going to be the closest distance to the seating.
That's a great tip. So I've got a bit of show and tell for you today. I've got one of my, I told you on the warm up here that I really like tools. Well, this is the thing that has helped me so much in look at Seth's excitement.
You caught me, dude. I always travel. It's in my bag at all times with just a simple level. So yeah, I can't believe I forgot that. In this world where we do so much CI, you forget that every once in a while there's a box in the room and you can actually use it. But yeah, that's huge. Obviously, for the guys who are doing the video, you don't want a crooked projector screen. That's not a good look. So huge for that. But I always have one of these. You can use those, but I'm lazy and I don't like turning it. So I use a 360 degree. That way, it allows me to get my speaker completely level. And then when it comes time to really dial it in, when I put on my propeller hat, I can rake the speaker back just a little bit. I can do both the same. When you get a pair of good loudspeakers set up, and then you do all the distances and you get everything set up perfectly, and then you just give them that little bit of rake back, it's like magic, dude. Everything becomes time aligned, and you get 3-dimensionality, you get depth in the sound stage. It's awesome. Yeah, I can't believe I forgot that. That absolutely needs to be on your truck.
Good old spirit level. Well, so this is an unusual one because it is also a 3-axis laser level. And when I got it, I was thinking, I don't know how useful that is, because it's all relative to the spirit level, of course. It doesn't have any of that self-leveling capabilities. But here's what I use it for. When you install a screen on a wall, we spoke about last week that how important it is to get the projector square to the screen. You don't want any kind of keystone, either horizontal or vertical, because that's going to try and get, 4,000 pixels into 399 pixels. It's going to be very difficult and mess up the picture. But with this guy, what you can do, let's turn it on for a second, make sure I don't blind myself or anyone on the call. But you can see the laser flying around behind me. What you do is you get a laser exactly 90 degrees out from this surface here. And so by finding the center of the screen on the wall, putting the laser level on the wall and turning on the laser, you can rock this back and forward, and it paints a line at exactly 90 degrees off the center of the screen. And if you have a colleague at the back of the room where the projector's going, as you rock it up and down, you can mark the front and back points of the projector mounting location and get the projector exactly square and straight in the middle of the screen. Because I don't know if you've taken any precise measurements, but rooms are never exactly square. They look square, you think they're square, and then you measure them and they are not square at all. They're going to be an inch or two out here or there, and really the better you can make it, it just make the install even easier and the picture even better.
scaring me with that square room talk.
Oh no, yeah.
Square cube rooms
No, well,
for acoustics.
I suppose I mean, not necessarily, 3 meters by 3 meters by 3 meters square, but as in parallel walls,
Yeah.
90-degree corners. Yeah, they're never the same. I've measured the center off a wall at the front of the room where the screen is, put a mark, measure the off the back wall into the center of the back wall, and they're inches off.
And that brings up an earlier conversation that we had, why it's so important to measure all of the speakers, because those walls are going to be inches off. So just because your left surround is 9.6 feet off the wall does not mean that even though you're sitting in the middle, that wall may skew a couple inches, and a couple inches is a big deal when you're talking about time alignment. So it's a pain, but take the time to measure each individual speaker and don't second guess yourself. It's probably the room. Like your tape measure is not going to lie. The room, your eyes will. The room's not always going to be a perfect shape, perfect prism.
100%. So let's talk about throw ratios for a second, and what they really mean. What does the throw ratio mean? How is that relative to the projector position, screen size of the room? So happy for one of the JVC guys to jump in. I can give a quick my 2 cents on it if you'd like, but the summary is that in a projector manual you'll see 2 numbers. It will be the throw ratio. That's what's going to be labeled as. The number is going to be 1 point something to 1 and probably 2 point something to 1. Those 2 numbers are a range, and they represent the maximum and minimum, basically the zoom range of the projector. Now, to figure out where the projector lives in the room, you really need to know the size of the screen. That's a really key, a key variable here. So once you've understood the size of the screen, and you can pick that however you like. We spoke about that in the video course last week. What you would do is to calculate the distance between the lens of the projector and the surface of the screen is to multiply those 2 numbers, 1.x to 2.x, with the width of the projector screen. And so let's use a really simple example. Let's say you've got a 100-inch wide screen. All you do is you take that. Let's say we've got I got a question. One of the JVC fellas, what's the throw ratio of your new laser projector?
1.4, 2.8.
1.4 to 2.8. Nice and easy to remember. It's just doubled. Great. So all you do is you get that 100-inch wide screen. You multiply it. You do two sums. 100 inches times 1.4 equals 140 inches. The second thing you work out is 100 inches multiplied by 2.8, which is the maximum distance, with 280 inches. And that is the range where you can put the projector. So lens to screen, 140 to 280 inches. I think you guys made a really good point last week about just making sure that you have 5% tolerance in there, just for who knows what, right? It's the right thing to do.
Yep.
And the other thing that often people are confused, and I'm going to try and use my web camera. So David, when you say 100 inches, it's straight across.
Yes.
So that would be 100-inch wide screen is roughly 114 diagonal, which of course is kind of an unusual size. If we went to the next common, customers always think in terms of diagonal. So a 120 diagonal is about 104 going straight across, and it's that straight across number that we use whenever we're doing throw.
Yeah, great point of clarity. I feel, I don't know if this is strictly true across the entire industry, but it seems flat panel displays seem to be measured in diagonals, and a lot of projector screens seem to be measured in width. But yeah, you're quite right, Chris. We want to be taking the horizontal width of the visible screen area, not the external screen, the visible screen area, And so in our kind of really easy to talk about example of a 100-inch screen, you've got the 140-inch throw to the 280-inch throw. That's the distance between the lens of the projector and the surface of the screen. You probably want to come inside that by a good handful of inches, just to make sure we're not on the very limit of any of the ranges. And Chris, you made a great point earlier about access to the back of the projector, right? So the length of the room, we've got the screen here, we've got the throw, we've got the projector, and the depth of the projector. Just make sure you add a little bit on the back of the projector to access any cables or even make installation a little.
Well, and not only that, the intake, the air intake for cooling on the projectors on the back. So we have some guidelines in our owner's manual as to how much space you should leave. And obviously you can engineer your way around that, and sometimes that could involve supplemental fans, and sometimes it's not needed. But anyhow, the intake is on the back, so you want to leave enough space for that. And conversely, the exhaust is on the front, and of course that needs to be not obstructed either.
So what if a customer doesn't want the projector in the room? They want it in the room adjacent to the theater room. How would you handle that?
That happens a lot, and now you're going to need someone other than me that can truly calculate CFM, the amount of airflow. But there is math that you can do, both in terms of how much cool air you're pushing in at the back of the projector, and then how much warm air you're extracting from the front of the projector. So, I mean, you can put these are, well, first of all, these are relatively quiet projectors, but there are people that choose to either put them in a different equipment room or choose to put them in a hush box. And you can have them fairly close to, a front panel or a back panel, as long as you engineer the proper airflow in and off. And that does involve using these supplemental whisper fans.
Gotcha, right. So you need to be controlling the temperature in that smaller room where the projector is.
Yeah, and providing the adequate airflow, either in or pushing it in or pulling it out.
But again, that's only if it's in an enclosure. You can put the projector in another room. You can open up a panel in the wall, make sure the projector exhausts into the theater room, and making sure that you don't put anything in front of the exhaust port. So in other words, you can make a rectangle, put it in there. It'd be preferred not to use any glass. Just have the projector coming right out of the wall in a rectangle, and having the exhaust intakes, or excuse me, the intake air with cool air from another room. When you get into all the math that Chris was talking about, then you start, when you start putting into boxes, hush boxes, fans, all those other things, there's a lot of engineering that goes into that.
And Jeff's idea is a very good one. In fact, I saw an install like that a couple of years ago in the Dallas market, where they have literally cut a hole in the wall, custom size, and so the front of the projector was visible in the room and came through that wall. The back was behind it. And again, these are quiet projectors, but I was struck by how much additional quiet we achieved in that room, because a lot of the noise is coming from the back end of the projector. And cooling a high lumen projector requires a lot of technology. A lot of people don't know this. This is maybe just give you some insight, but there are 12 fans, 12 in a current generation JVC laser DILA projector. And that big structure actually helps to keep them quiet. We have one of the lowest noise ratings of any brand, but there's still people that want it even quieter. And Jeff's idea of putting it into a wall like that will accomplish that to a degree. And when you stick the nose through, then, the exhaust, you don't have to worry about anything there when you're exhausting into the room. Oh, and also, We've noticed these new laser projectors they run a lot cooler. If you put your hand up to the laser projector, to those front exhausts, and if you compare it to the previous lamp designs, the amount of heat from the lamp design was much greater, and it could warm up the room to a degree. And these laser projectors they run a lot cooler, which tells me they're more efficient. That's another nice little benefit on this design.
And I'm just going to throw in, when you do have those little supplemental rooms that you have the projector in, and you're firing into your home theater, if there's somebody that's got tons and tons of power and a lot of heat sinks, Seth, and a lot of power going from those receivers and amplifiers, that's going to generate a little room too. So if it's a little tiny room with a whole bunch of gear, we want to keep an eye on that heat as well.
Good point.
I love it. Great advice. Thanks, guys. So Seth touched on something I want to talk about for a minute. He said, find a track, listen to some music, and know it really well. And I want to talk about that for a second. First, let's talk about just how important it is to have tracks, whether it's, movie scenes or songs, from albums that like the back of your hand. Like you've heard this scene in a movie, or you've heard this track from an album 1,000 times. You've listened to it at home, you've listened to it on every custom system you install. You know how it should sound, I suppose, is where I'm going with this. So I want to talk about that quickly, and I want to talk about what are some of your demo material go-tos. Like what do you go and pick out every time you listen to something?
If I say the words, say a prayer for the cowboy, there's a large group of this listening advice that they just cringe as we listen to that song over and over and over and over again when setting up loudspeakers. There are specific tracks that you can use that work really well. I use Ballad of the Runaway Horse. It is a terrible song, but it is very great for dialing in a stereo system as really to set up the main channels of a home theater. Once you get your foundation, your left and right channels set, particularly with in-room speakers, then everything else nice and easily gets placed where they need to go. But I always use that. And there's specific movie tracks that I use as well. Like I know when you play the Swedish Nightingale, the song from The Greatest Showman, I know what that bass note, what that first initial bass tone needs to do. And I know whether or not I have work to do or whether I'm getting close by just that one tone. So those tracks you have. Also, those simple test discs that say in phase, out of phase, help you to make sure you didn't miss something whenever you're wiring up. I like to play music. I do it a little bit more. It's a little bit more of a difficult way to do it, but I like doing it this way. I will plug left and right speakers in their corresponding locations. So left and right surrounds, left and right heights, obviously your left and rights. I'll plug them into that left and right channel and play music on them just to make sure I didn't get my phase right. Because when you hear something that's out of phase, you can tell. Like your ears feel weird, there's no bass, and it just feels like it's kind of like when you go to drive up a mountain and your ears need to pop. It's like something's off. If you can just making sure everything's in phase. Music is my favorite way to figure out whether or not you flip-flop one of your wires one part. It happens to all of us. It's one of those tracks, but you can actually get test discs that'll play in phase and out of phase between all of your individual speakers. Test tones that run. We actually have those built into the receivers from Denon & Marantz, so you can set your SPL levels. But test tones, make sure everything's plugged in the right channel. You always have those cuts ready to go for once you've got everything plugged in, to make sure that you got everything plugged in with the proper phase. It's huge.
Oh, so you said so you can you buy those? Where would you get a disc like that, or a
you don't even need to buy. If you've got a Spotify subscription or an Apple Music subscription or a Tidal subscription, just get one of those. If you don't have a subscription to one of those streaming services, get your life in order and get one. All the music is right there. Come on. but no, you can. And honestly, if you really don't want to get on one of those services, just hop on YouTube. They're all there, and they're good enough to play back an in phase and out of phase tone that allows you to do that. So It's all
There's
in
also a
stereo.
disc called Auto Sound 2000 that's got in phase and out of phase, and it's got multiple test tones, and it's a good tool if you don't have Wi-Fi in that room and you just need a disc.
Yeah, I save for the Wi-Fi. I save playlists, offload playlists. Like I have a tuning playlist. But the other thing you can do is download Audio Tools. Audio Tools is an app. I think it's like $20. Hurts a little bit. Pull the Band-Aid off. Just it's $20. You'll use it every day. But Audio Tools has your SPL meters, your line inputs, speaker tests, an RTA on it. I mean, you can really dial these things in. Couple that with, their not inexpensive are a USB interface for an outboard mic, and you can do some serious calibration outside of what's already built into the receivers. It's like a $400 USB interface, but Audio Tools is my go-to choice when I'm tuning big systems, big theaters. I need to double check something that's happening within Odyssey. I go to the Audio Tools app just to get a second measurement. But right built into the app and just using the microphone profiles on the phone, you can do some crazy stuff, including sending all those test tones.
I'd also like to add, we do something similar on the video side. And personally, I would say, buy a copy of the Spears and Munsell calibration disc, test disc. And we play, there's a loop that we play. And just like, certain audio tracks, I think we all have that, and we've all played that so much we can tell, is the projector set up right? Is it working the way it's supposed to? And then if I want to show some really dark content, I have a copy of Blade Runner 2049. If I want to show some really bright 4K HDR content, I have the Meg. I don't know that I've ever watched that entire movie, but I know there's a couple of chapters that are great for making sure we've adjusted things correctly. And then lastly, and this varies quite a bit, but when I think I got everything done, I like to throw in Ready Player One, which is a great audio demo as well as a great video demo. And I like to look at it and make sure we're expecting 100-mile-an-hour winds here in Colorado, and I'm just watching my tree, just make sure it doesn't fall on my house. In case you wonder why I'm looking up. But Ready Player One, when we're all done, is a great way just to confirm that everything is, ready for, in our case, it's a demo. In your case, it might be for your client to, sit down and get that wow moment. And, everyone should have a couple of those discs in their bag of tricks.
Yeah, 100%. Don't forget, I mean, if you're doing the install, don't forget to do it yourself. And if you've got a team of guys doing the hard work for you, make sure you tell the importance. Like, these jobs are not easy. These customers call in the professionals for a reason, and this is our opportunity to show off. So get that track that is going to move air on the audio perspective, is going to look fantastic on the screen, and show off all the work that you did to really solidify that deal. That customer knows they made a good choice by choosing you to do their system. For me, it's the best part of the job when you press play at the end. That's the payoff of a day's worth of work building, a theater, or multiple days worth of work building a really big theater. So yeah, don't miss the opportunity to flex and show off and, brag a bit about the work you've just done. That's the best part.
Hey guys, when you're talking audio calibration, do you find like the in-concert content different, or do you have to do a certain work through versus something like Ready Player One that's just crazy? Like really tuning in. We talked about like playing Dark Side of the Moon or something that we're all like used to. You're talking streaming that music in, right? But are we watching concerts? Because there's a lot of concert content, and to me, the concert content really has a whole different bottom end spectrum. Because they mix it that way, right? So do you have to kind of go back in and kind of readjust if you have somebody that's really into music content or operatic stuff that they're watching?
For me, it's know your customer. There's a cut, and I don't know why I'm blanking on this. Gary, you can bail me out on this. Captain Jack Sparrow, the guy who wrote all the movie, the guy who writes the scores. Why? Hans Zimmer.
Oh, Hans Zimmer, yeah.
Hans Zimmer, yeah. He's there's a live performance where he plays all of the cuts from all of his movies, and there is one where he plays the Captain Jack Sparrow. You get the best of everything. You get girls playing the cello wearing mini skirts. You get big explosions. You get lights. It looks fantastic. And when the trombones come in at the end, the room just shakes, and it's awesome. I always play that live music cut because it's just an awesome auditory just beat down, and it's so much fun. But yeah,
Nice.
you want to show off the you want for my stuff, you want to show off the full capabilities. All 4 of those subs that you had installed in that theater, let them do the work and show off the full capabilities of the audio system. And just like there are great demo, there's a difference between a good song and a good demo. Just like there's stuff that sounds great, there's also a lot of movies out there that just look fantastic that the JVC guys would love to have to show off with their projectors. So it's going to be a mixed bag, but know your customer, know what's important to them, and play the most badass clip of what's important to them to ensure that they bought the right system from you.
Absolutely love it. We've crept over our allocated time here by just a minute, and that flew by for me. I was loving listening to all of your expertise and advice. I guess we should wrap it up. So any last minute questions, please throw them in the chat. Thank you all so much for joining us here today. I'll let Gary close it out, but for me, thank you all for dialing in today, and thanks to our panelists for joining us and sharing their knowledge and brain power. So we're all available to you. You'll get our contact info in the email that goes out on Friday morning. I think we should totally share that list of the cool calibration discs, both video and audio, a list of fun tools. We'll make sure we get that included in the email too. But yeah, thank you all so much for your time, and we're here to help. So let us know what we can do for you.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Great job. I hope, our really intention was to kind of introduce a complete package here with the 3 sessions, and I think we did that. Looking forward to the interaction between now and the beginning of the year. If you guys do need help, I've got the players right here that can help you guys out. Jeff, yeah, hit me with some links on either calibration links that you particularly like, and or maybe some music links. Do you guys, does JVC have a 4K demo disc right now, or that's floating around? If there is content that you've got that I can appropriate, I'll put that on my follow-up on Friday as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, JD, anything else? Any last wrap-ups for you?
I mean, I learned a lot. I love hearing all the different content people use. I always like to test and tinker, and new content's always a great way to do it. So I've already got I found the Hans Zimmer concert already. So I'll probably play with that a little bit tonight and see what I'm missing.
Nice. Seth, I see you typing in a question from Chad there. Thank you, man. 18 questions over the hour, and combined with all of the interaction we've had over the last 3 weeks has been pretty intense. So with that, I'm going to urge you guys back to, I'll have a link obviously on our archives so that you can kind of pull all this together. What a great way if you've got a tech that's working with you and you just want, just to get the overall kind of concept from us. The links are right there. Go back and have them watch this content over the holiday break, or just kind of get them up to speed, if you will. That's a great tool for you guys to pass on to your teams. That's really what it's there for. Coming up in January, guys, yeah, I'm starting a whole new series, starting with AV Pros. We got Lutron coming up. We've got Claire Control, and maybe some more JVC web type of stuff that's going to bounce off of our live events that we have planned for January. So this conversation is not only going to continue, but we're going to come to you at the local level in terms of the reps and continue the home theater conversation. Things hit our locations all the time, guys, in terms of components. That's why I urge you guys, make sure that you're able to sign into our prospective sites. It's really important. I tell people all the time, right now, it's more about logistics. It's not just, the problem with the supply chain, but setting up your weeks logistically so you can continue to install each and every week. Make sure you get to the end for those paychecks. That's what's really important. And by looking at our websites, checking product, working with my team on the fly, that's what everybody does. Coming in to pick a product and then going out and installing what you can when you can. So it's really important that you guys got eyes on. I can always help bridge that gap where necessary. But the websites are active. Product is always dropping in. David, thank you so much. We're going to continue to kind of develop more content on the weekly webinar series in January. JD, you and I are going to continue to kind of come up with some ideas, utilizing obviously the participation that we get from our good friends like Biju and Andy and Andrew and Edward, I see all these guys' names every single week, so I really thank you so much. We're going to continue to give you guys great content. Okay, guys, is that it? Let's wrap it up. I will close this thing down and ask you back in 4 more hours. Yeah, try to get some work done, but you're going to be back here in 4 more hours. So if anybody had to bail off, or you kind of want to pass this to your team to get back on the second session, the last of the Twilight tailgate sessions today, right? That is going to be 2 p.m. West Coast, 5 p.m. East Coast. Guys, thank you so much. Continue to be safe out there. Have a great holiday with your family. From all of us at Snap One, we continue to appreciate what we've done together as a team, as a partnership, and can't wait to see what we do next year with my fellow colleagues here. Guys, from all of us, from Snap One, and from all the locals, we thank you guys so much. We'll see you in a few hours. Bye, guys.
Thanks
Thank
all.
you, everyone.
See ya.
Thank you.